What's going on, everybody? I'm Tom.
I'm Pat.
And I'm Zach.
We're best friends, and you're listening to the Reminiscent Podcast. They say you can't choose your family. Well, you also can't choose which era of music you grew up in. This is a weekly show where we discuss our favorite bands from adolescence and how they continue to shape our lives today. Each week, we'll head back to the early 2000s and take a closer look at the cards we were dealt. All right, everybody, welcome to the long-anticipated Sum 41 episode of the Reminiscent.
Freak out!
That was good. That was really good.
That was.
So,
Tom,
let's...
before you even start, I just want to say one quick thing.
Okay.
Is that all right? If I have the floor for just a moment?
You have the floor.
To say that, just to set the record clear, this is a very pro-Rachel Ray podcast. I don't think people understand that we're just going to sit here and pretend like this isn't a world where we appreciate the 30-minute meal, or this is a world where we're just going to sit here and pretend like she isn't a gosh darn American treasure. Like we're some sort of vehicle that is anti-Rachel Ray in some weird, twisted way, because that couldn't be any less of the case. We're a show that supports everything she's brought to American culture, all right? The 30-minute meal isn't just some small... we're just going to sit here and pretend like we don't. I just need the world to know, right? That, hey, that's just where we're at.
Thank you, Pat.
Yeah. I feel like I conveyed my words exactly how I wanted to.
Pat, I was really waiting for that. Like, there was some tension building.
Well, it felt like there was a bit of doubt, but it would, we can't just sit here and ask for more tunes and pretend like we're not a pro Rachel Ray podcast.
Wait,
what did you say?
are you asking for more tunes?
More tunes!
I'm asking for more tunes.
More tunes!
More tunes!
All right. Anyway, thank you for indulging me, Rachel Ray. Godspeed. Keep doing your thing. But what episode, Tom?
This is episode 105, the Sum 41 episode. We have been talking about this for a long time, and as we mentioned, we are taking requests for episodes, and we'd like to dedicate this episode to the Queen, Amanda. This is, as she put it, her version of our Blink-182, I guess. And to me, that feels like a lot of pressure. But let's get into it. We hope we give her something she wants to listen to. The show is entirely dedicated to her. And in fact, if you're not Amanda, shut it off. Stop listening. It's not for you. It's not for you.
That felt like a direct shot at Rachel Ray. And that's something, as I've mentioned, that I'm not here to stand for. It felt like a direct shot across the bow. And I'd have to police it if it was. I'm not going to stand here in a 30-minute meal world and had to be said.
Apologies to Rachel Ray.
Sure, as always. Since you said it's her Blink episode, can I just throw this out the floor? I think Zach was talking about this before the show, or he was defending them. Are they just the Canadian Blink? Obviously, the similarities in the name from the similar era. Are they the Diet Dr. Pepper of Blink-182? Are they, is that even accurate to say and mention it that way, or are they their own, very much their own thing?
Well, as Rachel Ray would say, don't judge a book by its cover.
Sure.
And just because it's a one-syllable word followed by a series of numbers does not mean that they are the same band, doesn't mean that they're the same music, doesn't mean they march to a beat of a Travis Barker drum, if you will.
Yes, well said.
I don't think they could if they tried. The boy's too damn talented.
I don't think they need to in that respect, because I have said in the past, and in the past, I mean within the last 15 minutes, I have major respect, big props to Blink, what they've done, what they continue to do, how they've affected me, how they've affected Tom. I don't think Tom would be right in the head if it weren't for that band. So major props to Blink, and we need it. However, this is a big fucking spin, okay? Turning that dime. Sum 41 rocks unequally harder.
Whoa.
For a large sum of their musical dues. And they don't do anything really terribly bad, in my opinion.
Should we drop a club horn on that incredibly hot take right there? Sum 41 rocks harder than Blink-182?
I would say that it's too accurate to pump a horn for. I would pump the horn for how accurately that describes them.
Are they better than Blink-182?
In a world where
Okay.
there's way too much judgment and character, name calling, tour success, CD sales, like random factoids, better? No, man. I don't know.
Is it the Nas Jay-Z thing where if you're ranking the top 4 of whatever in a super specific part of the musical world, where one's realer than the other, but the other's commercial success can't be ignored, whereas Sum 41 would be the Nas, where they actually were rocking hard when Blink was borderline emo pop in certain aspects?
If you strip it down to bare bones, you take the bark off the tree, right? You skin the cat, you make the banjo. I think they're equally successfully rocking their way through their world.
I would say that if you start in 99, half hour of power, grab the devil by the blank and blanket in the blank, it's kind of like, it has a different feel than Benoit Balls or Carousel or M&M's. Right? All the stuff. Like, it's kind of like when that first tapping solo Van Halen did on their, you know what I mean, when people heard them for the first time. When people hear grab the devil by the blank and blanket in the blank, it's like, oh my God, what is this, right? I think, Zach, your brother had this on a football mix, that and the Hell song maybe in the early 2000s, and it was like, I see. Is their intent to rock hard as hell? Because that seems to be exactly what the they're doing.
Shout out to Brendan again, because without him, I would not have been introduced to Sum 41 at 9 years old.
A healthy age for it.
Because he was, in fact, 11 at the time and ready to grab the devil by the horns and blank him up the blank.
Mm-hmm, yes.
Well, maybe that might be a little bit too young for Brendan, though he did have a beard in about a year. So
he was one of those dudes that was like junior high goateed up, which was rare in like a real power status move. I think there was like 3 or 4 kids in our neighborhood that could claim such hormonal advances. How about a quick history of the band? They're from Ajax, Ontario. There's a chance that they watched the Erie Otters in an OHL game. Chances aren't great. I looked for any OHL cities around Ajax. Not there, but I'm sure they were aware of the Ontario Hockey League. Got to bring it back to the Otters at some point in every episode, of course. That's why I asked if they were the Canadian Blink, because they are a Canadian band. In 96, Derek Whibley convinced Steve Jocks to join a band called Casper. And the singing drummer, Steve Jocks, was the best drummer around or in their neighborhood or on Whibley's radar, it sounds like. He convinced him to join. They needed a singer, and he was going to sing. So they convinced Dave Brown Sound Baksh. I probably butchered his real last name, but the nickname Brown Sound, because he could rip and shred the guitar, of course. He became their lead guitar, so Derek could play rhythm and sing. And they added their bassist soon thereafter. And they decided, as Wikipedia claims, and I want to hear you guys' takes on why with Blink, there's mystique about the name. The Wikipedia claims they named their band because the members changed it after a supernova show on September 28th, 1996, which happened to be the 41st day of their summer vacation. So summer 41st, Sum 41. And in 99, they got noticed, dropped a half hour of power, and rocked noticeably hard. I think they did indeed grab the devil by the horn with their rocking, but also that was the name of the first song on it, as we've mentioned. Zach, were they on your radar at this point? Like pretty right away?
I think maybe, yeah. In 99, at 9, I believe Brendan had picked up Half Hour Power when he was 11 and distributed it to me.
I mean, it was a huge 4 years for them. 99 was Half Hour of Power. All Killer, No Filler was 2001. And then 2002 was Does This Look Infected? So it was like bam, bam, bam.
And then Chuck in 2004, too.
Right, but I feel like the core of their whole catalog was in a pretty tight window, it felt like. Like all of a sudden, because I had assumed Hell Song would have been on Half Hour of Power, but it was I would not have guessed at all it was like their, quote, later work, I guess.
What do you mean?
I guess I just thought it was just like, oh, there's a spit sound. This is more raw. But I guess one thing I noticed was as you go through their catalog, it really doesn't let up. Like some
Right.
Fall Out Boy, for example. It gets harder. From Under the Cork Tree is not quite their like Chicago basement power, whatever the you want to call it. And then, but this stays like, even if you go up to Chuck, the first 3 or 4 songs are as hard as like you wouldn't, it's like, when did they let up? They really don't. So
Right,
for me, it
yeah,
was hard
yeah.
it was interesting to go through and see like, In Too Deep was on their, pretty much their debut full-length album. I would have guessed that was like later career poppy stuff, but it wasn't. That just happened to be a good song they wrote.
Right. It was hard to define when like their eras because they just remain so consistent with their sound, which I mean I think goes to show that they started with a great sound and they ended with one, and they didn't need to change because they already had the formula down from day one. You know, they were just super good at what they did at like 18, I think it was. Derek mentions in one of their earlier albums something about like, I don't want to think about that when I'm only 19. It's like, holy shit, dude. Like, that is hella young to be. I think it said they toured 300 days of the first year that they went on tour. It's super impressive, like what they were able to accomplish very young. And yeah, like you said, it's hard to tell like which was one of the more recent ones or the older ones because they've all just been super good and just rocking, man.
So an object in motion tends to stay in motion. Maybe that translates into the musical realm
Maybe.
of rocking hard.
I would say another thing that differentiates them from Blink was, talk about Blink being a little more poppy, a little more relationship-centric lyrically. I was reading a little bit about Does This Look Infected and how the Hell song was written about a friend who had AIDS, and Still Waiting was written after 9/11. It came out in 2002. Fat Lip obviously is kind of like, feels like a class song, right? A song about being kind of, I guess, trailer trash and rocking hard regardless, no matter what.
Sure.
Did you guys pick up on that, or was that something you thought about at all? They seem to be mostly, I don't know, it never felt like a breakup band to me. Like Blink-182 always like teetered on emo in my head, even though that might not be accurate. But they were always like, we're going to rock hard, and it's pretty much, we're always going to be singing about finding success based on societal stuff that should have pointed us in a different direction.
Yeah, I've definitely felt that even when I was, in my teens listening to some of this stuff for the first time, like, because Blink was like my first love with pop punk, then they came in and it was like, they may not be like as poppy, but like, it's also not as like kind of sad and whiny about like breaking up with a girl or whatever. I always thought that was kind of interesting because I'm sure at some point they touch on it, but it wasn't like their whole, is ethos the right word? I don't know.
Even In Too Deep, it's their poppiest hit, but it doesn't, I don't know if there's a girl or a relationship mentioned in the whole, you know what I mean? I can't think of them mentioning women at all really in that way. Whereas like Blink named numerous songs just after girls' names like Josie and things. You know what I mean? It was just like different.
Yeah.
Also, are we being unfair to even mention Blink this much in the episode? I feel like the names of the bands are so close that they're naturally tied together. Are we forcing that, or is that something that other people feel as well?
I think maybe it's being mentioned more than a few times because I think it's saying something, having them compared to each other. Like, for example, like I think some rocks harder than Blink. And some people might throw the gloves down and be like, whoa, dude, who are you? And where can I come find you so I can...
But like, is that the best band to compare them to? I mean, for me, it probably not, but it seems fair. I think they were definitely on different planes. Yeah, I don't really think of them together too much.
I think you're right in saying that it's not fair, but that's immediately where my mind went to.
Right.
Are they the Canadian Blink? Are they the Diet Blink? And it's only name-centric because I don't think the music compares at all.
Yeah, not
But are
really.
they famous enough and successful enough to really have become their own?
I
in
think,
America,
yeah.
at least. Maybe they are. Yeah, maybe I guess I have yet to meet, until Amanda requested the episode, a band that was like, Sum 41 was kind of my like I've never really heard anybody say that. Like they're like, I live and die Sum 41. And again, I didn't grow up in Canada or anything like that. I could be totally off on this, but they just were a band in the early 2000s that had some hits to a lot of people. Maybe, right?
I mean, they definitely did better in Canada, like no doubt. Like their 2001 album All Killer No Filler went triple platinum in Canada, single platinum in US, which is amazing. Does This Look Infected, platinum in Canada, only gold in US. Japan loved them that year, went platinum in Japan. They loved their pop punk. And Underclass Hero 2007 didn't even rank in the US. So it's consistently done better in Canada. So maybe it's a band that's more important to Canada, but I've never lived there, so I can't,
Any more
discuss
fast
the
facts, or
difference.
do you have facts that are of a fast nature that you might be able to lay down on?
You already laid down most of the ones that I had. I thought the band name, I always think that's interesting where it came from. And Sum 41, I was trying to figure out if there was like some weird, like satanic quality to that because of how they start, All Killer No Filler. Which I also think is funny that the album's called All Killer No Filler, and it starts with like a 20-second filler intro track. Like, except for that first song.
Might be my favorite name for an album ever.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
So here's a factoid. I didn't know up until the Sum 41 In Too Deep music video that there were, in fact, underground pools in Canada. Unless it was filmed somewhere else, which is highly plausible because the bedrock is so high in many parts of Canada. And I don't know about specifically Ajax, Ontario.
Which sounds like a Looney Tunes name for a town, can I just say?
Yeah, sure. But the
or
water...
Acme. Sorry, that's Acme. Sorry. I was thinking Ajax Dynamite or something.
Many homes in Canada don't have basements because the bedrock is so high.
Now you know.
There you go. There's your fact from me.
Well, Zach, I blew past last week. You brought up a point we were talking about post-Egyptian Christmas rock, and which is not a thing, but on this show it is. And you started talking about the real era of mortar that would have existed, and you said, well, that's back when they were using hair and blood, and I didn't hear you when you said it. So I was listening back twice to the show last week, thinking of stuff to put out on social media and everything. And I was like, I kind of want him to expand on that. Because we blew past the whole, blood and hair mortar thing, era of music. So I wanted to apologize for steamrolling what to me was one of the most interesting things we've ever said on the show, and I say that with
Are you asking me to elaborate?
We'll have a bonus.
Do we have
episode.
a sound effect for? Can we have we should do come up with a sound effect for like the mortar corner or something like. The,
oh my god!
The mason jar. It'll be Zach's little nuggets on. Because honestly, I think the pool thing is like there's no way they shot that music video in Canada because they just don't have pools there. To me, that's insanely interesting, like those sellouts. Are they even Canadian?
I wouldn't say that they don't have in-ground pools in Ajax, Ontario. However, I am saying that many homes do not have basements because the bedrock is so high to the surface, so close to the surface that you and I would walk on if we were in Ajax.
Okay.
So, is it common? Probably not, from my unprofessional opinion.
So I want to discuss their music videos because they put out some of the best I've ever seen. But, let's do that. And then I want to talk about, we covered a few of their songs as 4 Under Par, the band that the three of us were in from 8th grade until senior year of high school. If you don't know by now, I played drums, Zach sang and played lead guitar, and Pat played bass, kind of, sometimes.
Kind of.
And yeah, we played a few songs.
I was going to say it if you didn't.
But can we talk about their music videos, and can we start with the Hell song?
Is that the action figure one?
Yes. It is the greatest fucking music video ever.
Did it predate Robot Chicken, I wonder?
Oh. Interesting.
Because
Google.
To me, it seemed like a pretty groundbreaking. Did it predate the music video where Blink-182 threw the money off the roof and shot it in a storage container? Because who came up with the "we're gonna do nothing" music? Well, it probably came before the 2000s, obviously, but it's very interesting to me. Like, obviously, always in my head comparing them to Blink, like who was more punk and who did more punk things first. But obviously, the music goes. Sorry, that had nothing to do with the music video. But yeah, there's a bunch of action figures, and it's great.
Well, I think there is something to say about just that being their kind of style, because I read that they got signed to their record label by like the article said sending them a video of them having a squirt gun fight in their front yard over like their music playing, and it's just kind of like nonsensical but something fun to watch over the music, and obviously super low effort, no budget DIY. And that's kind of like, I guess if you had all those toys on hand, it would be low budget, but it was just kind of them playing with action figures, doing a rock show with them. They had, was it a blimp or like an airplane at one point, and all these famous people in the room, they like printed their faces out on computer paper and like scotch taped them to these other dolls. It was just...
It was definitely Tech Deck era things that would have been riding on Tech Deck.
Yeah, because Ludacris and Snoop Dogg arrive in a van.
Oh, and there's smoke coming out of the toy. Yeah, it's like, it must be the Mystery Mobile.
And it looks like the Cheetah Girls are flying in on a P-51 Mustang.
Very Cheetah-licious Christmas under their belts.
I mean, this is genius stuff. I'm watching it right now. I can't lie. But this. I mean, if early 2000s and I had nothing to do but play music and have fun with my buddies, I'd probably maybe come up with something like this too. Or not come up with something like this. I don't want to give myself credit. But if you were a bunch of guys playing music and you came up with this, totally get it.
I mean, yeah, it's totally the kind of thing that like I would have shot on my mom's camcorder with you guys on a weekend, you know.
And you'd still have it today. There's Alice Cooper just popping out of a little Jack in the Box type thing. And the Osbournes are there in Lego form.
They were creative dudes. I mean, they were one of the first bands where I was like, obviously my dad wasn't like, oh, you know the Eagles, like their drummer sang, like Don Henley sings. I'm like, oh, the drummer sang? Like that wasn't on my radar. So when I found out that the drummer sang, it's like, oh, that seems like a rule that's being broken. And that the lead guitarist often, like there's the part at the beginning of Fat Lip music video where they do the rap thing in the convenience store. Right. And the coordinated jumping of some of their live performances. There's a lot of dancing, rapping, switching turns, singing stuff that, I don't know, there's a lot of creativity there that, I don't know if it doesn't get mentioned enough or does, but did you guys have any thoughts on that as kind of with the Fat Lip music video in mind?
I can't imagine writing a song with that many lyrics. And also when you listen to the production of it, like specifically with headphones on, how much like panning there is and all the voices. They're even very creative in the way that song is composed spatially in the recording. And yeah, I've always really loved that song because I know I could never write anything close to that good with all the different parts and kind of like the weird white boys kind of rapping thing was, it seemed like they obviously didn't take it too seriously either and just had fun with it. It's good. And I think that's the kind of stuff that makes me think like you can't compare them to Blink because there was nothing on that level coming from them at that time either.
Agreed.
So the video for Fat Lip, there was dancing in a parking lot, playing a show in a parking lot, again, where there's probably no power being run to there. What was the premise of that video?
I think it was mostly the girl getting a haircut and then carrying a goose. Like, what other than skateboarding can we do in a half pipe? It's like, well, let's give a girl a buzz cut. Are there any waterfowl involved? I'm like, yes, several, actually. I think that was the whole thinking behind it.
Pretty good. Again, I don't want to say low effort, but low budget. And
well, it was like them, right? It was their aesthetic. Like we're f-ups, and that's something that we can dance and rock out to. Like we, again, it wasn't relationshipy at all. Like there was no, like there's, the music video. I hate to mention Blink again, but the music video for Feeling This, where there's like teens trying to f- through jail glass at the visitation center. You just didn't really see that, right? They were just in the mud carrying geese around and giving each other buzz. I don't know. It was just like this super counterculture, who f***ing cares about anything thing that made them probably more hardcore and cool than Blink in a lot of ways, or almost every way.
I think it was a proper music video, and I think it's incredibly on brand. I'm not saying like, oh, they should have tried harder. I love all their videos. I think they stand out much more than other bands. So
just because the production value was higher doesn't mean it wasn't still like the perfect encapsulation of what the is going on. You know what I mean? Like off for the sake of telling someone to off, right? Like what's the lyric in Fat Lip? A cut down's not too big of a sin or whatever. That's not the lyric, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
Cutting people down is just a minor offense.
Yeah.
I
To
gotta
correct
admit,
myself.
I am just fully engorged in this video right now.
Are you
I'm just
Zach
loving this
watching
so
us?
much.
Is there a goose counter? Can we make a bing noise every time?
I'd have to start it again. But
Did you say you're engorged in this video?
yeah, like a tick in a rump.
You're just getting right in there to rebirth something out of your corpse. So I have a quick aside about their very early 2000s. We'll talk about their legacy in a bit. I just have to say that I was looking through and sometimes what soundtracks they end up on makes me laugh more than anything. They ended up on, think of like a very specific type of early 2000s movie.
Bing, bing.
Ooh, a couple
Goose
geese.
count.
I like it. We should do that for every show. Like, what geese have we experienced during the recording? They appear on 2 separate American Pie soundtracks, and the SNL they hosted in 2002. Sean William Scott, who plays Stifler in the films, obviously was the host, and then they are on the Van Wilder soundtrack, and also In Too Deep was on the Cheaper by the Dozen soundtrack. So.
Really?
All of that is a definitely interesting list. If only that they're cooler than the American Pie film franchise is, but they, for whatever reason, were like intertwined with them in a major way throughout the early 2000s, which is probably unfair, but also super fitting if you look at some of those soundtracks. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that.
It seems fitting. You know, I imagine the college crowd enjoying their white boys rapping thing.
But like, if you think about those movies, like it was a white college-age dude trying to get laid, and that's pretty much the script for all of them, right? There's like
I never
17
saw
those
any
movies.
of them.
Yeah, neither have I.
You have wasted less time than we have in this world. But Sum 41, which never sang about relationships, was always just that MO, I guess. I feel like, I guess I was deeply troubled based on how cool they are, that they had to be associated so frequently with the American Pie film franchise. I just feel bad for them. I don't know. Just like, in a major way, there's been probably hundreds of thousands of people that only heard the music while Jason Biggs was f***ing pastries, or Sean William Scott was humping Will Ferrell's thonged body on SNL or something. I don't know. Like, it's just unfair because they rock super hard and were very punk. I don't know if that was like something the higher ups, quote unquote, would have decided went well together, because to me it really doesn't. But anyway, I had to get that off my chest.
Well, licensing music on film is the most profitable way to make a living making music.
Oh,
so,
well, if it helped them out, then I'm all for it. I take it all back.
I think video games is the number one for licensing, but movies are up there for sure. The other standout video is In Too Deep with the diving competition. That this music video is like of a higher quality, right? It's kind of scripted a little more. There's a storyline, and it's like the jocks versus the misfits, I guess, and just amazing, right? I don't have time to break it down like we have with other music videos, but I think the scores from the judges were interesting, right? They had like 4.1s, and didn't they give a couple 6.9s in there? And just a lot of fun, you know. And Brown Sound does that perfect dive and then comes out soloing from the pool, and just they had the most fun videos of that entire decade, I think.
And they did the power move too, where you have your different hit playing on the car radio when you pull up to the spot to do your new video, which not many bands get to do, but it was pretty cool.
I wonder who the creative visionary was for all their videos, because I think they're consistently just incredible. And I don't know, maybe we get Derek on the show. We can interview them.
Yeah. I wonder if he based it all off that Rodney Dangerfield movie where he goes back to school. I think it's called Back to School, with his son, and joins the diving team at age like 65. Anyway, because to me, I think it's supposed to be reflecting of that movie, but I'd love to have that confirmed. I guess a quick Google would do it, but...
God, the farting under the armpits before the dive. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, pretty good.
So good.
Set up the slip and slide. Although no S-Max, because there was the First Date music video for Blink.
Right.
Again, I'd love to, I guess we can put it in the show notes, but who did the day at the area pool first, you know? Because First Date definitely, I guess, took it back to the 70s and was moderately different, but kind of it was a big era for bands trying to be funny, right? Wow. I don't know. It's not all of them succeeded is what I'm saying, but they batted 1,000, I'd imagine, on landing all of what they were trying to accomplish with being either funny or for the sake of it.
Right. So I think I first came across Sum 41 from Zach. I was trying to figure it out where I first heard them, and when Zach was talking about, when you were talking about your brother, I remember we always did a couple covers in our sets, and you really wanted to do Machine Gun. I think because the guitar work is like, it's impressive, but it's not super difficult, so you could probably play it while singing. Not saying you couldn't handle something super difficult, but the drums were way more than I can handle as a ripe 12-year-old. Like, could not single stroke roll that fast. And at one point, I don't know if it's coming out of a bridge or into the solo, there's a scream, which I think Zach did at the very beginning of the show. It is, what is it? Wow, freak out? Is that the line? And
it went a little something like that. Yeah.
It was almost exactly how I just said it. And I've never, my entire life, been able to do any kind of scream that doesn't sound super effeminate and like I'm in immediate danger. And I just remember being in your mom's bedroom.
My mom's bedroom?
Because that's where the computer was, right?
Oh, right. Yeah.
On like dial-up internet. Like ripping it off of LimeWire or whatever. And you being like, okay, you do the scream into the solo, but it's also like during this really big fill, and I was just like, Zach, I don't think I can do it. I don't know how to scream. And you're like, it's easy, you just do it. Like, what? That's not an argument for anything. Oh, you can't? Just do it. I'm like, that's how you do it. You just do it. And I think I don't think there was that much of a fight, but we ended up settling on the Hell Song, and we covered that quite a bit. And my fondest memory of that was we played a Battle of the Bands at the Pepsi Amphitheater downtown, right on the lake in Erie. I think at this point we're maybe 14 or 15.
Yeah.
I think I still have these photos somewhere on my computer.
Let's also remind ourselves that this is like a string of shows that we had played within like 2 weeks. So we had the VFW, we had Pepsi Amphitheater show, and then we had another one that was also quite large. So it was like two in a day, and then like another one the following weekend. It's like, whoa, this is what touring is like, right?
We're on tour, guys. It's a mini tour. And we're playing the Hell Song, killing it, right? And at one point, I just hear your Zach's voice just blow out, totally gone, but like a fucking champ, did not lose any intensity. The crowd was loving it. I remember looking into this crowd of, there's maybe 50 people by the stage and like a couple hundred sitting on the grass. A few, yeah. And like we saw like 8 people wearing our t-shirts, and I thought that was super duper cool. And just I remember just play the song, who cares if his voice is gone, it's rock and roll, whatever.
Pat, you remember this show, right?
But of course.
And I think the thing that pissed me off the most was there was like a huge applause after that song. And
yeah, I hate it when that happens.
And they had an MC that was like, whoa, this is going to be too close to judge. Like, they were going to give the results of the Battle of the Bands the day of. But after we played, they were like, all right, this is going to be too close. We're going to have to give the results tomorrow because we need to spend some extra time on it. So we were all thinking like, oh, damn, that must mean we're like tied for first, because they changed the whole scoring algorithm after we played. We took 5th. but out of like 15, and we were like 15 or 16. After playing that song, really had some false hope that we may have won a Battle of the Bands, but we did not. So every time I hear that song, I think about that defeat, I guess.
We never did win a Battle of the Bands, did we? We were always in them, but we never did win them.
We got second out of third place out of 3 places once, but no. So we've covered a lot of their stuff. We tried to do In Too Deep, but I think there was an issue with the solo on that one. Or maybe it was some of the vocals back and forth weren't working out, because I was struggling to do too many things while playing drums. Adam, bless his heart, offered to sing, but that just wasn't really working out. And so I think the only songs we got to cover of theirs were the Hell song.
Yeah,
is that
I think
right?
that's right. I'm pretty sure we only did the one.
We played a bunch at practice though, but never.
We never had them up to a certain level that we would release it to the wild.
Hey, and you know what? Maybe that goes back to Blink. We covered a ton of Blink songs, but we could not handle Sum 41.
They rocked considerably harder, and we were rockers, but I don't know if we had it. I mean, we couldn't do Machine Gun.
Oh, I could totally do it now, bro.
We just didn't do it.
A part of me did kind of resent the fact that I wasn't good enough for it.
I've fully forgiven you for not taking on that scream.
I still can't do it, man. I don't think I could.
Wow! Well, I can't do it either. I mean, it's
Freak out!
Taking on screams was a weird part, had to be part of a band's arsenal in that era, which I don't think it might have been the only few years where it had to be like something you had to consider. Like, I don't know, who's going to be our scream dude?
And we didn't quite have it. Zach wasn't quite there yet at the time because it happened pretty much around the time we were winding down with things. So we never even really got to practice that much.
Yeah, and I did have to deal with it a little bit in Tyrannic Fusion. I did have some screaming episodes in that song.
And I remember them being pretty impressive.
And we had a different guy that was the main loud yeller. But yeah, anyway, that's beside the point.
So, I mean, where do we go from here? I feel like they seemed to be harder to talk about than most because I guess there is just natural tendency to compare them to
A quick
Blink,
nugget here,
but
where maybe another arena where they don't get enough credit. In 2005, they were on SNL with Ludacris, collaborating on Get Back, and this was 3 years before Jay-Z Linkin Park stuff dropped.
Oh.
So they never were beating anybody to like big stuff, but they were kind of first or tied for first on a lot of different things. And I thought that collaboration was particularly interesting, just because it seems like when you think back, like, oh, what were the rap rock collaborations? Jay-Z, Linkin Park would pop to a lot of people's heads. But yeah, they were, and Ludo was into it too. He wasn't just like, I'm being forced to do this. They were all like, we're about to try something. And then they rocked really hard through the entire performance. I just thought that was kind of interesting.
I haven't seen that. I'll put a link in the show notes. I'm really interested to see how that went. Because, yeah, I can probably only think of Jay-Z and Linkin Park for that.
I would say, like, where do we go from here? We're at 40 minutes. We've covered a good amount of the discography, except for the final portions, which are either we can talk about those or we can jump right to, with those in mind, talking about what their legacy is, because I don't know if those haven't been talked about by anybody else, really.
I will say one thing about their newest record, which was from 2016. When I saw the announcement about the artwork, I thought that it was a joke.
What is it?
It's like, try to imagine artwork for an edgy 7th grader that found a leather bracelet on the ground that was previously purchased at Hot Topic. It looked to be catered towards that audience. It was like one of those crosses with I don't even know how to explain it. It's like a cross with like flames coming out of it and 2 skulls on either side. Like very independent trucking company logo looking. Weird. Super weird. And they released the album and I could already tell I wasn't going to like it just based on the artwork. I tortured myself through 3.5 songs trying to give it like a good listen, and it broke my heart.
Well, after Chuck, because I found out that Brown Sound, like I remembered him having a side project. Post-Chuck, post-2006, he left the band for 9 years, except for a brief return in 2008. He became this lead singer, guitarist in his own heavy metal / reggae project, the Brown Brigade. So he left, and I imagine that derailed the train. I mean, they were pumping stuff out left and right, like we said, from 99 to 2002. And then Chuck was like 2006, right? So there's a big gap between Does This Look Infected and Chuck, and then Brown Sound left. And he's one of the most defining aspects of their sound, other than the voice work.
Possibly, yeah.
So, I mean, that was a major loss. What's their legacy?
When I talked to Amanda about it, I apologized up front for not being familiar with their more recent work, and she said neither was she. And this is like one of her favorite, I guess, most defining bands of her growing up.
It comes back to that, like, no one's ever like, oh, Sum 41's my thing, right? Like, is their legacy that they were just in a few college party movie soundtracks, had some clever music videos, but never had put the full, like, 2 or even 3 full front-to-back albums that were listenable? I don't know, like, did they just not capture people like that? But I feel like they're underappreciated in a lot of ways, but there's not, like, I guess it would be all killer, no filler, but people talk about, like, for example, what's the story, Morning Glory by Oasis, or like, there's always like that album, but no one's ever like, oh, Sum 41, no one's ever like, oh, dude, all killer, no filler, like, changed my shit. You know, they're always like, wait, was the Hell song? You know, I feel like I don't know, I could be wrong here, but did they just not break through that, like, did they never have a we've arrived moment?
I think they might have been plagued by being a singles band. And again, I don't remember if I said this during the show or beforehand, but like...
But is like Coldplay a singles band? Because their albums front to back are never anything anybody talks about, but they've laced enough singles together that they're like a stadium band. But Sum 41's not a stadium band. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I mean,
are they just a B-list band, like the top of the B-list? Are they a bubble band? Is that like a phrase we should use?
I'll have to put out a survey or something on Reddit, because I feel like anyone I knew that loved Sum 41 loved them in the sense of, I'm a casual listener that loses my shit when Fat Lip comes on, but they're not like repping the t-shirts. I didn't know anyone who was like going to Sum 41 shows, and again, I was probably on the younger end of their listeners at that time.
Well, even my wife was like, she claims to be a Sum 41 fan. Not claims like she's a hoser. No, she's like into them. And she listens to pieces every once in a while. Like, she'll put it on YouTube if we're like flipping through songs one night, which to me is like as deep of a cut as it gets for anybody I've ever met talking about Sum 41, right? To just come up a song, like choose to play a song off Chuck by them while you're just like drinking wine one night and listening to music.
It's a good album though.
Yeah. Again, Zach, I don't know what you think. Are they B-list or I don't know.
I don't know how a band falls into that category other than like a timing thing. Did they have the skill and the creativity to be that stadium band? Probably, but how did they get there? How did they get to the B list, or how did they become?
Did they rock too hard for mass appeal? And I mean that as a serious question.
Ooh,
that's a really good question.
Because by 2011, remember, and we talked about this on the show before, Mumford & Sons and Vampire Weekend and was rolling out. So post-Chuck, their sound wasn't relevant, and they weren't really straying or experimenting. They were like, no, we're just going to keep ripping it up, you know, which is more power to them, rock, you know, for those about to rock, we salute you type shit. But I don't know if the landscape was going to accept them post-Chuck regardless. And was that just, you know, like people talk about the Beatles and everything, and every 2 albums sounded different, and were truly great bands, you know, they change every once in a while. Even Blink's sound changes over time. I just wonder if they were really good at the one thing and they just were like, this is us and this is how we're going to play it. I don't know.
Well, they could have changed with the times. Maybe they couldn't have changed with the times. They're true to who they were and their sound, and just really enjoyed rocking hard. So if you can't make it in the turbulent time that the early 2000s were, because the shift was so fast and it always was shifting. There was so much genre building going on at the time. Whether they could or couldn't have, whatever. I mean, they had their moment, they had their spotlight, and they had their audience. They had everything that we didn't. I mean, I would have been happy with being known for what, okay, I'm Sum 41 and I accomplished this. Great, awesome. Okay, I'm okay with that. I'm just glad that they didn't really truly try to do something that they couldn't do, you know, and disappoint. Maybe they did disappoint later on. Like Tom, you were saying that that one-off album that came up later, which I don't know anything about, but It disappointed. So like I would never want to be in that position. Like, oh, you really, really shouldn't have let that go. You shouldn't have let that hit the stores or whatever. Because it's like MJ, he left at the top of his game, and good for him, right? I don't know. That's where I'm going with this.
Well, I think they're better than, like, Hootie and the Blowfish is getting back together and they're touring next summer. And, like, for example, Bare Naked Ladies is on the ticket, right? Or you think about, like, those bands like who sang "Bouncing Off the Walls" again?
Couldn't tell you.
It doesn't matter. Any band that was on the Van Wilder soundtrack is going to hop onto some early 2000s freaking show, right? Like these are bands that you could hear at a bar on the mix that they're going to play, or we're going to play our hits for 7 minutes each, and you can pay $30 and watch the show. I think they're above those Bare Naked Lady types, but for some reason, they are just forever going to be on the American Pie soundtrack. I feel like it's so unfair because their creativity is noted and appreciated by so many. I don't know. It's just a sad. Maybe their legacy is what it is, but it's not necessarily accurate for, like you said, Zach, the creativity they brought to the table. And it kind of sucks. So this one's for you, Sum 41, I guess.
Yeah, I wish I had more to say for this episode. I know the singles, and I feel like that's probably representative of a large amount of their fan base. I don't know. I want to put out a poll and do some follow-up on it to see, like, for the people who claim they love Sum 41, like, it's a meme these days, but, like, name 4 of their records, or like,
right,
name 5 songs off of Chuck.
Name 5, yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah. Well, we can name 5, but we still don't feel like we're fans. I will say this, and this is following up on our Christmas show episode, and this might be something to start to wind down on here as we reach the hour mark. They did collaborate with Unwritten Law on a show called Unwritten Christmas for the Santa Claus 2 soundtrack. So that's we apologize to our listeners, obviously, for missing that as we delved deep into the early 2000s Christmas tunes that were released last week. It's a good episode. Check it out if you missed it. But yeah, there is technically a Christmas song released by Sum 41.
Awesome. Very cool.
Very cool in the sense that it's not, but I guess Santa Claus 2 has to have a soundtrack, so somebody's got to write that shit. I don't know. Wait, oh man, you know what? Yep, I think, do you hear that noise? Is that something, you tune that in for us, Tom? I think there are sister stations chiming in.
It's coming in, I hear it, yeah, here we go.
Well, I can't call it.
It's got to get a little better. You'd expect it to get a little better but you can't just lose brand sound and get divorced from the Canadian queen herself, Avril Lavigne, and expect your music to sound the same, so it's not for me, bud, but here in the great nation of Canada, we'll love them forever. They stand on their own 2 feet. If you compare them to Blink, you're a numbskull, in my great opinion, and you're not a true Canadian. This later stuff's not for me, but that's not their fault. Series of unfortunate events, we'll call it, yeah.
Just not my cup of tea, Ruff.
Would you say it's a bit mental?
It's a bit bloody mental.
Well, hey there, bud. Take her easy, Kay. They just go out for a rip about 2 or 3 more times and just give her a real whack.
A little rip, it'll get you. A little pull of this.
Well, I suppose you might call it a pull down there, but
we're neighbors. What you talking about?
You don't really sound like you're from Ajax, Ontario.
I don't think we've ever broken the 4th wall before.
All right, there we go. Our sister station, O Canada, coming to us from Ontario, right? Is that?
Winnipeg.
Winnipeg. My apologies to the Great White North. Let's give our songs of the week. John.
I'll do it quick. Good Kisser by Lake Street Dive off of Free Yourself Up. It's a good jam.
Awesome. Never heard of them. But I actually listen to your recommendations more now than I did when we were like discussing them the next week.
Oh, good. Sometimes you can tell in my voice when I mean it. The past couple I've meant it, including Snail Mail and Lake Street Dive. They bring the thunder for sure.
Both those songs I freaking love, Pat. We've got a nice radio station up here called The Current, and they hit Snail Mail pretty hard this summer. And then earlier in 2018 was Good Kisser. But Snail Mail was rocking that song all summer long in the heat. It's like, it's such a good song.
Yeah.
It's just
almost effortlessly, just dropped a crazy album. Yeah, good stuff.
What do you got, Zach?
Okay, I'm on the Tiny Desk concert kick still, mainly because I like to see what other people play for instruments, and that inspires me to buy, and helps me buy when I do buy one. But it's oddly Saint Seneca, the first jam on this little video called Happy Alone. I don't know why. It's just got this little bloop of a bass line, and I just kind of dig it. And she plays this weird instrument. And I have no idea what it is, but I can't even hear the damn thing, honestly. So I'll never buy it. And I don't have any judgment on what she's playing. But it's a good little jam.
I think that's our first Saint Seneca shout, which is long overdue.
I've been so bad with music lately, just not listening very much. I don't know if I mentioned this in the past, but I found a record on Apple Music called Zelda and Chill, and it's Zelda-inspired lo-fi hip-hop. And the Song of Storms is a pretty good song from Ocarina of Time just to begin with. But in Breath of the Wild, when you cook something, it makes this kind of like rhythmic clinking sound like pots and spoons in a kitchen. And they use that as part of the beat in the song. And I just think it's really imaginative and gets me super stoked because cooking was one of my favorite parts of Breath of the Wild. And obviously I'm a big fan of Zelda. So I don't know what the artist's name is, but it's just Zelda and Chill. Obviously, link in the show notes to all of these things, all the videos.
It's a very on-brand recommendation.
Right.
If you listen to the show, you know Tom's a giant Zelda fan.
Right. Yeah, so that was us fumbling our way through a Sum 41 episode.
Yeah. Leave us a review. We'll read it on the show. Suggest a band to us on Twitter @_reminiscentfm. Subscribe. Do all that stuff.
Yeah. That's all you got to do, and we'll all have a good time there, bud.
Wow! Freak out.
Sure. More tunes. That was really good, actually. And we opened and closed the show. You know what? I should stop talking. The screams did it all.
Love you guys.
Love you.
Love you.
Bye.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you were anyone other than Amanda, shame on you. This episode was not for you. Let us know if Sum 41 was your jam back in the day. Like we said, we can't imagine there were many people who like that was their thing. So tweet at us @_reminiscentfm. Let us know if this was your favorite band and if you listen to all their records, not just the singles. All right, talk to you next week. Bye.